My next-door neighbours are an odd bunch. Sure, they have top-of-the-line furniture and vehicles, but everything was honestly quite outdated. It looked like everything was old, but in between aged and antique, so they kinda just looked ugly. But like I said, everything looked really pricey, like super expensive hand-me-downs. I say next-door neighbours, but they really are a couple of clicks to my right. We all live in an expansive closed community, all with nice houses and acres of wilderness separating us. It's honestly quite beautiful, and if anyone is able to get the money to live in one of these areas, I highly recommend to check them out, as long as the neighbours aren't quite like these ones. I get it, they're rich, they're eccentric, those often go hand in hand, but these people in general have just always put me at unease. When my wife and I were invited over to their place to have dinner, I wasn't ecstatic about it, but my wife convinced us to go and just check the place out. Maybe they were simply misunderstood. The invitation was a literal invitation. When I said outdated, I meant really outdated. We had a letter hand-delivered to our residence by their butler, who also gave me the creeps, and we opened it up to find the invitation beautifully handwritten inside with amazing calligraphy. The letter, word for word, went like this. Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Redacted. Sorry for such a late welcoming letter. We seldom have the time for such formalities, but found some for tomorrow. We would be most grateful to have you both for dinner over at our manor, and would love to share our rich, familial culture with you and your wife. Hope to see you soon. Sincerely, the Redacted. Something about the letter felt wrong, but when my wife shrugged it off, so did I. The day came to go over to their manor, but of course, she came down with a stomach bug and couldn't make it, so now I had to go alone. I arrived there on what I supposed was to be on time, since no time was labelled, about 4 p.m, and was greeted with an extremely attractive young man and woman. They were already outside of the front door when I showed up, and something told me they were waiting there for a while. Everything about these people were flawless but dated. Perfect skin, perfect clothes, perfect teeth, perfect hair. It felt like I took a step backward in time. The only thing that truly looked odd were their eyes. I worked at a nursing home as a young adult, and I could recognize old eyes anywhere. Walking into their house was a true blast to the past. It felt like I really time-traveled, except everything was covered in dust from lack of use, except for the kitchen and the dining room, which was already set up magnificently. We had small talk in the dusty lounge area for a couple of hours before we began to eat. Nothing really stemmed from the conversations, but while I felt awkward from it, they kept on smiling, but not really with me. They smiled at me. When we finally went over to the dining area, we passed by a door that was halfway open, and faint noises could be heard from down the stairs. I guessed my body language showed an interest in it, because the woman announced there was nothing to be seen down there, twirled her finger, and the door magically slammed shut. I thought I must have been seeing shit, but they kept on heading, so I followed. Every survival instinct inside of me told me to leave right away, but I wouldn't be telling this story if I did. We sat down to eat and started off with some wine. As soon as the first sip hit my lips, I felt an instant craving to eat. They must have noticed this because they sent out butlers with food to me. Well, really only meat. I began to devour uncontrollably, failing to notice at the time I was the only one eating. They just sat there, watching. I ate about 3 times what I could normally stomach in about half of the amount of time it would normally take me for a regular meal. After that, I felt extremely bloated and very sick, as one normally would after going on such an endeavour. They then bought me a glass of liquor for me to drink, saying it's an old family remedy that will make me feel better. I'm not the biggest fan of liquor, but in order to not offend them, I pretended to drink it anyways. Besides, every cell in my body told me not to drink that, and something was wrong. Even just a whiff of vapor from the drink made me feel unnaturally tired. Deciding that I needed to purge what I ate immediately, despite it tasting so good, I feigned stomach issues and asked where the nearest restroom was. They told me through the kitchen and to the left. I get up and walk to the kitchen. After I was out of sight, I walked a little faster, almost breaking into a light jog. I noticed that absolutely no one was in the kitchen right now and found it sinister. Looking around, I noticed mine and my wife's photo laying on one of the counters. Curiosity gets the best of me, so I detoured to take a look. I probably should have left by now, but I needed to find out why the photo was there. Before I headed over, something about the invitation came to mind after seeing a cookbook next to the picture. Next to the photo was that old, tattered, handwritten cookbook already open to a page. I didn't pay too much attention until I saw a detailed drawing of the human anatomy. There was no title on the page, but it was the last words on the page that shook me. Flesh is most potent when victim consumes its own kind. And then my stomach gurgled.